Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Patstone and I'm an associate minister here at Shelburne Street Church of Christ. One of my main roles in ministry here is as worship leader, and I've been in that role now for about the past 7 years. I want to talk to you today about worship, and more specifically, I want to talk to you about reverence in worship. To do so, I want to share with you a little bit about what's been happening in my life just the past few months. In the past few months, as I've been leading worship at Shelburne Street, I had actually been feeling a sense of disconnect from God as I was leading worship. And I thought, well, that's not right. That's not how this should be working. Why is that happening? And I asked the Lord that very question, what is going on? In the last couple of weeks, this all began to come to a head. As I was praying, I was calling out to God, asking Him to shed light on this. And as God often does, He didn't do so with some great storm or great wind. He answered it through a very simple conversation that I was having with somebody about worship. In my conversation with my friend asked the question, where is the reverence for God in worship? When I heard that question, it hit me. And I felt God kind of tap me on the shoulder and ask the same thing. Yes, Daniel, where is the reverence for me? I had realized that I'd gotten so caught up in so many little things like getting the right songs for a Sunday morning, making sure that I was choosing the right key, making sure that there's great dynamics in the instruments and the voices and the sound issues were taken care of. All good things, all important things, and I would even argue part of worship in itself. And yet, somehow the greatness of God had gotten buried under all these little things. How can it be that I would invite people to experience and know God when I hadn't been experiencing and knowing Him myself? Now, when I think of that question, where is the reverence for God? I have to ask, well, what does reverence really mean? What are we talking about there? When I hear the word reverence, I think of holy fear. I think of awe of God. That kind of whoa of who He is. If there's any passage, that I think speaks to this, it's in Matthew chapter 28. Okay, I'm going to start that line one more time. If there's one passage that I believe speaks to what reverent worship looks like, it's Matthew chapter 28. This is Matthew's account of the resurrection. And it involves these two women, both named Mary. These two women come to the empty tomb, and there they meet the angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord proclaims that Christ is risen, and he tells them, go and tell the disciples. And so they go to do so. And then in verse 9, it says this, suddenly Jesus met them. Greetings, he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshiped him. Now, I always have to put myself in the place of these two women. The awe that they must have experienced in seeing Jesus there in the flesh before them when just a short time ago he hung dead on a cross. And now here he is before them. How their minds must have struggled to contemplate what they were actually seeing, to comprehend it. And what did they do? It says they clasped his ankles and worshiped him. Now, if someone's standing before you, to clasp their ankles, you've got to get low. These two bowed down to clasp his ankles. To me, that speaks such a beautiful picture of what reverent worship looks like. We stand in awe of who God is, but we bow down low, and yet we dare to reach out and to touch him. And Jesus allows himself to be touched. There's this sense of awe and wonder and mystery and greatness of who God is, and yet there's this personal connection as well. That is what had been missing for me in my time of preparation for worship. I had not been spending the time recognizing God's greatness. And so I would simply ask, how about you? What has it been like for you personally? Do we get a sense of this reverence for God in our church communities on any given Sunday or any other time that we might meet together? Do we get a sense of this reverence for God in our own personal lives? I've had the joy of experiencing this in times of worship and in times of prayer, but I've also had times of experiencing this in the more sort of regular, mundane things of life, going for coffee or just looking out and experiencing Christ in creation. I really believe that if we open ourselves up to this, if we allow space to get a sense of how great God is and yet find this wonderful sense of personal connection with Him, we come to know Jesus better. We come to know Him better in our hearts. We come to know Him better in our minds. My prayer for you is that you would know this. And my prayer is that whether it's through ministry or just in our personal lives, whatever little things that we focus on, the greatness of God wouldn't get buried under them. But rather, when His greatness permeates us, all these little things just reflect that. In fact, when His greatness, His glory permeates us, we bring that into every space that we walk in. And I believe others experience it through us. That's the glory of God. I pray that you would know this. God bless you.